We are now joined with MS Money, partner of GST at Deloitte, India, and Suresh Rohra, partner at Thorton, India, for the details. Mr. Money, I'm coming to you first. Do you believe that this will make it less cumbersome, combining the three return forms? And, more importantly, the system has taxpayers have just gotten used to the current form. So, changing the entire system, could that mean a slightly more tedious process in the interim?
I think if the three returns get combined into one, it will be truly excellent, because we have to bear in mind that GSTR 2 and 3 processes have not yet started. In fact, in the last GST Council meeting, I recollect that they had mentioned that they would be having only GSTR 1 for now, and the GSTR 1 up to the month of December would need to be filed. And after that, during the month of January, a call would be taken on GSTR 2 and 3 filings. Now, if what Timsy is saying comes true, then what it would mean that possibly for the rest of the year and since July, GSTR 2 and 3 may not need to be filed at all. Here we have to bear in mind that the objective of having GSTR 1, 2 and 3 was essentially to ensure that invoices are matched between the supplier and between the recipient, which again ensures that the right people get credit while all forms of tax evasion are avoided. So my sense would be that the concept of invoice matching should not be done away with, because that's a very, very fundamental aspect of GST, without which a large part of GST, really loses its attractiveness. So while invoice matching should be there, it can possibly be achieved by having GSTR 1 only being filed, the matching between the supplier and vendor's invoices having at the back end of the software, and possibly only those cases which do not match being thrown up to the taxpayer. So the taxpayer, instead of looking at all cases which would be matching, and in a normal situation, in a genuine business situation, all invoices between the vendor and the supplier would always match. So those cases which do not match, if they are thrown up to the taxpayer, and the taxpayer is asked to explain them, I think that will fulfill the twin requirement of not doing away with matching, retaining matching, and also ensuring that the burden on the taxpayer is significantly reduced. But
Mani, just to understand this, what would it take to change the current system? The fact is that there are three different forms which the taxpayers have gotten used to. Agree that the 2 and 3 haven't come into effect as much yet, but what will it take to kind of ensure that it is combined into one holistic form?
Okay, so when we are talking of combined into one holistic form, as I see is the taxpayer can only file his outward supplies, which is GSTR 1. And once he submits the outward supplies, someone's outward supplies would always be someone else's inward supplies. So there is no need to file a separate form for inward supplies, which is what is GSTR 2 all about. And if these two get matched in the back end and the matching entries are knocked off, and only the unmatched entries are thrown up, it is something which will really reduce the compliance burden for all taxpayers.
Okay. Suresh, let me bring you into the conversation. What are the kind of changes that would be required into the current system then? If we are looking at FY19, it's not that far away. So what are the kind of changes that will be required, and what are the glitches or what are the blips that you could foresee while in the transition process?
Firstly, as we know, GSTR 1, 2 and 3 has been a debate for quite long now, and the industry is seeing this stagnation every now and then. And initially they were like, we have to prepare for 1, 2, 3, then subsequently the dates got staggered. So today we know that while the government is saying that 2 and 3 is something which they are wanting to combine, somewhere probably in terms of systems they may not be completely ready. So that is one thought. The second is that obviously if they combine, life becomes much easier for the industry at large. However, having said that, match-mismatch is a concept which should continue for manufacturing. But as far as services is concerned, the service sector is going to find it very difficult. And therefore, somewhere they need to take a call and communicate that match-mismatch as a concept would not be there for service sector.
Do you agree with this point, Mani, that services for services to actually comply to this would be tedious?
See, services sector also today also in terms of the FinVet credit rules is required to maintain a documentation trail where they are required to prove that there has been a tax that has been passed on. Although today the onus is not too much on the supplier. The onus today is largely on the vendor, and the vendor has to prove that he has to pay the tax. So a distinction between manufacturer and suppliers when it comes to matching may not be the best way possible, because throughout the GST law, the intention is to combine the processes for manufacturers, traders and service providers and not segregate them. So if we start trying to bring in a distinction between them in terms of the return filing and compliance itself, it may again introduce some elements that we don't want to see in GST.
Okay, fair enough. Suresh, last word to you. Next fiscal is what MZ is picking up from her sources. If we were to assume FY19, which is just about 3 months away, would that be a fair time period, or would it take a few months more? Would it take about 5 to 6 months?
No, I think the next fiscal is a good time period to assess that where do we stand in GST. Because by then we would have the numbers clearly on table. Because today the numbers are not getting captured in some fashion or the other. So I presume probably one quarter is good enough for us to know the reality of GST on ground.
Okay, fair enough. Mani, Suresh, as always, a pleasure to have you with us. We will analyze this further. And remember, this is something that we have picked up from our sources. 18th is when the nitty-gritties will be worked out, and we'll have our experts back to help us understand what this means and what lies ahead. We'll take